They didn't just uninvite me from Thanksgiving. They made it clear I was not welcome in the one house I grew up in. My own family, parents, cousins, even my brother decided, without a single call, that I was too difficult to celebrate with. I stared at the invitation I never received, my chest tight, my hands trembling. It wasn't about the turkey or the cranberry sauce. It was about pride, favoritism, and long-held grudges. They expected me to cry, to beg, to disappear quietly. They were wrong. Revenge to me has always been an art. It's a careful, patient symphony of decisions. Standing in my $6.2 million estate, newly finished and full of rooms they'd never seen, a plan began to take shape. Not violence, not chaos. A precise unfolding meant to mirror the way they had discarded me by the time I was finished. They wouldn't simply regret their choice. They would feel the humiliation they'd handed out, amplified, public, and impossible to ignore. And I would watch them learn what exclusion truly costs. This was deliberate and utterly final. Growing up, my family always seemed picture perfect from the outside. My parents, successful, social, obsessed with appearances. My older brother, adored as the golden child. And then there was me, the quiet one, the ambitious one, the one who didn't fit their mold. Family gatherings were always an ordeal. My mother critiqued everything I wore. My father dismissed my achievements as lucky breaks. And my brother, well, he thrived on my discomfort. Even my in-laws subtly undermined me, congratulating my brother's successes while pretending my promotions and raises were insignificant. Invitations came wrapped in condescension. Like charity, they were reluctantly bestowing. Thanksgiving, in particular, was a battlefield. My grandmother's hand-carved turkey would always sit under her stern gaze, as if she could weigh who deserved more. My cousin Rachel would smirk when I asked for an extra slice of pie. And my mother, with her icy politeness, would casually remind me how hard it is to manage people like you in the family. I learned to swallow my pride, to smile through the sharp edges of their comments. I learned to laugh when they laughed and to nod when they lectured. But every slight, every whisper behind my back built a quiet fire in me that never quite went out. It wasn't dramatic at first. Small exclusions, missed calls, congratulatory messages that never arrived. They were like paper cuts, individually negligible, together bleeding. The first sign of real tension came last year when my inheritance was casually reallocated. An antique gold clock, ornate, heavy, and promised to me since I was a child, was meant to be mine. It had been the one tangible thing I thought tied me to a kinder version of my family. I imagined it on my mantle, a proof of connection. Instead, on the day it was supposed to be handed over, my parents presented it to my brother. "You've done more for the family. You deserve this," my mother said, as if she were offering a compliment. My father added an approving nod. My brother smiled with the practiced ease of someone who had never had to fight for recognition. My shock was met with laughter. Not the soft, embarrassed kind, but a sharp, mocking sound that cut clean. My grandmother clucked her tongue, pleased. Rachel made a face that said, "See, I told you." I stood there, clutching nothing, feeling smaller than a child. I left quietly that day because arguing would have been melodramatic. But the humiliation planted itself like a seed out after that. Favors dwindled. Birthday greetings arrived late or not at all. Invitations were forgotten. My achievements were reframed as flukes or as attempts to show off. When I tried to voice my hurt, it was dismissed. "You're being sensitive," they would say, and the room would shift away from me. Thanksgiving became the measuring stick. They treated attendance like a test of loyalty and worth. When the group chat notification lit up months later with a single line, "We don't think you'd enjoy the family vibe this year anyway," I read it more like an execution sentence than a message. There was no conversation, no call, They had decided together that I was too difficult, too independent, too much trouble to merit their time dot. It wasn't just exclusion. It was a public verdict. With that tiny digital sentence, they made their preference plain. And in that clarity, a strange feeling surfaced. I was no longer merely hurt. I felt seen. I felt provoked. It was a dare wrapped in a polite lie. They had underestimated me. They had lit the match, and it smoldered on 2 weeks before Thanksgiving. I got the final blow. I had helped my parents manage a small property investment, a sentimental trust handed to me years ago, thinking it was our family project. Without warning, my parents sold it behind my back, taking the proceeds for themselves. When I confronted them, my mother's eyes were cold, her lips a thin line. "You've been too successful, too independent," she said. "We can't have you overshadowing the rest of us." I laughed, a hollow, trembling laugh. "You mean to steal what's mine and humiliate me in front of the family?" My father shrugged. "Sometimes family comes first, and sometimes people have to learn their place. This wasn't about money, it never had been. It was control, dominance, the satisfaction of watching me flounder. The betrayal cut deeper than I imagined. I felt punched from the inside, every bone aching with disbelief. I spent nights awake, staring at the walls, imagining revenge. I wouldn't be subtle or careless. They had taken everything I had invested emotionally into this family. Now they would see what exclusion felt like. By Thanksgiving Eve, I had decided. I would feed the hungry, the lonely, the forgotten, all in my mansion, and I would do it without a single invite to my family. But this wouldn't be charity. It would be poetic justice. I could hear my mother's scorn. "You'll never be like us. You'll never belong." I gritted my teeth and whispered, "We'll see." A week later, the wound twisted. An old laptop left open revealed an email thread where my parents had plotted the sale and crafted lies to justify it, that I had been reckless, selfish, unfit to manage family affairs. Each message read like a small, deliberate cut. My mother wrote, "We need to protect the family legacy." My father suggested a story to spin at Thanksgiving. My brother added supportive comments and emojis. Their calm, calculated tone enraged me. No remorse. No hesitation. They treated me as if I were an inconvenience to be edited out of a portrait. Being erased felt intolerable. Revenge needed more than shouting, I decided. It required narrative, optics, and timing. I mapped their weaknesses, vanity, social circles, the public pride they displayed. I cataloged Slate's moments they had humiliated me and planned to expose them through contrast, not gossip. I would show the world their conditional kindness. I called Clara, a neighbor who'd been quietly shunned years earlier. She arrived with a wide, grateful smile and a story of being excluded from holiday dinners for not being real family. I reached out to colleagues who admitted they'd been hurt by my parents' casual cruelty. A retired chef agreed to cook for people others overlooked. Piece by piece, I built a mosaic of the invisible. The plan felt righteous. I vowed not to stoop to petty sabotage. I would not smear them. I would create a night that contrasted everything they claimed to value: warmth, inclusion, and public generosity. I would show, not tell, and I would keep my hands clean. I rehearsed guest introductions, planned seating so those who had been silent sat center, and commissioned centerpieces that echoed the clock they had stolen. I sent an anonymous note to my parents that morning. "This year, your absence will be noticed." It wasn't threatening. It was a promise. Every gesture was deliberate menus printed with care, flowers placed to fill empty spaces, a playlist that climbed from soft memory to confident laughter. Each choice carved the contrast. I moved like a conductor, invisible but in control, watching every piece fall into place. That Step 1, clean the slate. I polished every surface of my estate, the marble floors reflecting the gleam of the chandelier lights. Every room was ready for guests, every plate shining like silver dots. Step 2. Invite the 32 people my family ignored. I called old friends who had fallen out of touch, colleagues who had been left out of holiday dinners, neighbors without family nearby, and even a few of my mother's social rivals. All were welcome. All would be treated like royalty. Step 3. Psychological warfare. I sent an anonymous note to my family on Thanksgiving morning. This year, your absence will be noticed in ways you can't imagine. Don't worry, you'll see who truly matters. Step 4. Culinary and social perfection. Chefs arrived at dawn. The menu included everything my family loved: turkey roasted with precision, mashed potatoes whipped to perfection, pies that could make any critic swoon. I orchestrated the seating, ensuring the house hummed with laughter and gratitude, the exact contrast to the silence my family had chosen. Step 5. Foreshadowing karmic justice. I arranged small reminders of their betrayal throughout the house, empty frames where they would have been. Reserved chairs with their names, subtly marked with the heirloom clock's miniature replicas I had commissioned. By the time the guests arrived, the tension in the empty spaces was almost tangible. By mid-afternoon, my mansion was alive. Guests mingled, shared stories, laughed, danced. They toasted to friendships, to small victories, to being seen and appreciated. Meanwhile, my family received updates from mutual friends, photographs, videos, snippets of laughter. Every image was a dagger, a visual proof that they had missed out on joy they thought they owned by birthright. Step 6. Escalation. I orchestrated a few subtle accidents of poetic justice. A cousin of mine, the one who always mocked me, tripped over a decorative rug near the grand staircase, safely but humbling. A neighbor who had scoffed at my cooking in the past found themselves served the most elaborate, indulgent dishes with exaggerated fanfare, highlighting my competence. It was slow, cinematic humiliation, a storytelling art of revenge. I watched the world through a screen, my pulse steady. Small victories turned into small masterpieces. And all the while, the empty chairs, my family's chairs, loomed over every joyous moment, a silent indictment. I thought about every angle before I sent those invites. The language was simple. No explanations, no drama, just, you have a place at this table. Responses came back cautiously grateful. People arrived with nervous laughter, clutching stories they had never been allowed to share. Clara, who had been turned away from a church luncheon years ago for not belonging, hugged me and said, "This is the first time I felt wanted." Marcus, a junior architect whose promotion was quietly given to my cousin, told me in a voice that barely hid his relief that he had rehearsed how to be invited for years. I directed the flow without appearing to control it. Cocktails began in the library where old books soft conversation. Small bites in the sunroom loosened tongues. By the time we reached the dining hall, strangers were swapping secrets, missed parents, tiny betrayals, long silences. Those confessions braided us into an accidental family. I listened, and with every story, my resolve hardened into something like mercy, not revenge for spite, but revenge that revealed the centerpiece mattered. I have the stolen clock recast into a reflective sculpture. It wasn't a relic of spite. It was a mirror, literally and metaphorically. Tiny shards around its face scattered light across plates and faces. When someone glanced at it, they saw themselves framed among others. It was a quiet sermon. What you hoard can become what binds. I staged the optics carefully. Photographers hovered at the edges, catching flurries of laughter and the slow ease of people being known. A montage ran on the foyer, screen brief clips of toasts, hands passing plates, a child bolting after a runaway napkin. Each clip was honest, none of it staged. Authenticity was the point. I wanted my family to receive something they could not dismiss as theater dot. There were small disasters that could have ruined the polish. A spice mix was too bold and a casserole smoked for a minute. Lights flickered upstairs. Each time I moved quietly, smoothing edges, turning each flub into an anecdote that made people laugh. Those fixes showed competence more than triumph. Competence looks like care, and care becomes a public rebuke when wielded by the one you thought incompetent. As the sun angled down, messages began to arrive in silent notifications. Mutual friends dropped images into group threads, candids of joy. A clip of a toast, a slow motion of someone dancing alone in the hallway. I did not gloat to my guests. I held my composure so the footage spoke for itself. Their joy would be the instrument of their humiliation. In the quiet moments, I thought of how this would land. My mother, who curated scandal as a hobby, would hate being the outsider in a story she could not own. My father, a man who measured success with a handshake, would feel the absence like a missing ledger entry. My brother, who thrived in living rooms filled with his audience, would find no audience at my table. Everything I arranged was not merely spectacle. It was a demonstration of values, generosity over pedigree, warmth over pretense. By the time the evening swelled, my mansion thrummed with voices. The empty chairs were never empty in purpose. They were evidence. That afternoon, I conducted a quiet symphony. Each laugh, each plate passed, a note in a composition designed to haunt them. Revenge, I realized, could be executed with the precision of hospitality and the cruelty of truth. Thanksgiving evening arrived. My family finally called, their voices hesitant, curious. We heard something about a party. Who's there? I smiled, knowing the foyer microphone was live, cameras discreetly streaming every corner of the house. Every laugh, every toast, every moment of warmth would be imprinted in their minds forever. You're not invited, I said evenly, passing the mirror-lined hallway, my reflection a calm mask. But you're welcome to watch. Within minutes, the video link hit their inboxes. They saw 32 people eating, laughing, dancing in a mansion arranged meticulously for their absence. The turkey gleamed on a silver platter carved with precision. Pies were presented with flair. They watched me at the center, orchestrating a celebration filled with generosity, connection, and joy, the very things they had denied me for years. My mother gasped, hand pressed to her mouth. My father's hands trembled as he clutched the phone. My brother slumped into his chair, disbelief etched across his face. Rachel's smirk faltered, replaced by something like unease. They were powerless, mere spectators to a happiness they could not touch, a warmth they had refused to give me. Every smile and laugh from my guests was a reflection of the love and recognition they had withheld. Then came the final touch. I unveiled a small display at the heart of the dining room, the heirloom clock, engraved with their names, transformed into a centerpiece honoring all who had been overlooked, forgotten, or dismissed. Its polished surface reflected the light, scattering glimpses of my guests' faces, the embodiment of inclusion and appreciation. Every glance at it was a quiet indictment. Their cruelty had forged someone stronger, wiser, and more capable, and that strength deliberately excluded them. For hours, they watched silently. And for hours, I sat among my 32 guests, the mansion warm, fragrant with roasted turkey and pie, laughter and conversation filling every corner. No anger was necessary. The revenge was not chaos, not confrontation. It was proof. A spectacle of exclusion reversed. Every plate served, every toast made, every candid smile captured on camera became a statement. I had risen above their petty games, and they could only witness it from afar. The subtlety of it stung more than shouting ever could. They had been erased from a world I had created, and it was impossible to reclaim. This was the revenge they would remember, not for vengeance's fire, but for its cold, undeniable clarity. By night's end, my family didn't call. They didn't show up. They didn't apologize. But I didn't need them to. The point had been made. Exclusion comes at a cost. And betrayal always leaves a mark that no apology can erase. I stayed in the house that night, surrounded by people who mattered, their laughter and gratitude filling rooms that had once echoed only with my frustration. The heirloom clock ticked softly in the background, a steady heartbeat of justice. In the quiet, I imagined my family somewhere else, reflecting on their choices, not haunted by ghosts, but by the absence of connection, by the warmth they had refused to offer, and by the lives and moments they had missed while trying to assert control. Revenge doesn't always need fire, fury, or confrontation. Sometimes it's a mirror. Sometimes it's a banquet that celebrates the overlooked. Sometimes it's a quiet, undeniable proof that even when they try to push you away, you can rise higher, stronger, and more generous than they ever imagined. So now I ask you, whoever's listening, if you were in my shoes, excluded, humiliated, and betrayed, what would you have done in this situation?